I think I will go straight to the questions because I would like to have more time for the Q&A parts. And I have this question like, well, what innovative financial products can BSSI firms create using tokenized assets such as securities or portfolios? Like, Rainy, can you please help me with that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think to begin with, right, you have to always remember when you want to do a product, right, who is your customer and what is it that the customer wants. Customers actually have challenges coping with many different innovations all at one go, right? So, if you are starting, I would say, right, start with products which people are familiar with, right? Because, when you say tokenization, already they're confused. Hey, what is this tokenization? How does it work? What's the risk? La, di, da. Then if you go and put a very complex product, then the second level of complexity, right? So, my advice would be, right, always start off with traditional products, right? Because as I said, no, there's a lot of people who don't have access to even traditional products, right? Like, private equity, VC funds, some of the private funds, bonds, and all that, and shares of private companies. Okay, but beyond that, right, when you're looking at products which are innovative, right? So then I would say that the innovation comes in the use of the underlying asset. So if you look at a lot of SMEs, right, a lot of these SMEs actually don't have real estate that they can use as collateral when they want to actually borrow. So what do you then do? So then you become more innovative and you look at the nature of the business, right? So you look at their cash flow, you look at the receivables. So then you can say that, okay, let me do an investment note where I securitize the receivables, right? So that's an example, right, of how you can do an innovative product. Of course, there are things like utility token that you can do, right, where you give, where you do a token and you. So let's say you have an FNB group that wants to raise monies, right? So they issue a token and they give a share of their revenue, yeah, for example, right? So you give certain economic rights that's associated with that. So, but when you're doing like real estate, right, there's an opportunity for actually innovation there. So if let's say you are doing an apartment block and you're financing that apartment block through the issuance of a token, right? And you want to enable the younger generation, for example, that may not have enough resources to actually participate and buy. They may not have enough deposit now, right? But 2 years down the road, I get promoted, I earn more, my wife earns more, I can get a bank loan. Yeah. So you can have tokens that actually, lease to own concept through a token, right? Where if you buy X number of tokens and you hold them, right, you are given the first preference, to actually acquire that unit, but it comes along with you committing to rent, for example. So there are many permutations, right, that you can build in. So it really depends on the use case. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's because of the use of smart contract, right? Not that it cannot be done in the traditional world; it can be done, but it's very administratively, operationally cumbersome. Yeah, tracking, the record keeping, etc. But of course, being a blockchain and what do you call this? Using smart contracts, these become a lot more efficient. And also, right, people don't get stuck because you can list it for secondary trading. If I choose to change my mind, then obviously I can go and I can sell, and I get my money, right? As opposed to in the traditional sense where you won't have access to that. So yeah, there's actually a lot more that I can we can talk about, but in the interest of time, I think I'll stop here.
Yeah. Epic, you have any idea?
Sure. I echo that, right? I think start with purpose, right? Start with the use case. Start with what problem are you trying to solve, right? That's a lot of things to be tokenized, right? Are you focusing to do that for investment, or are you focusing on doing that to solve payment problem, for example, right? With that, let's just stick with investment or payment, right? Those payments probably the biggest topic that people are talking about right now. Um, uh, I'll give an example of Thailand again because there's a lot of use case happening right now. Thailand also took a very big step, waiving capital gain tax for all digital asset, including tokenized asset, including crypto, for 5 years, right? That's a really, really big step. And they are tokenizing Thai baht government bond, which they give 2% yield, which is, clients can hold unlimited tokens and they can earn 2% on the total amount of their money, where previously they earned less than 1% for the higher amount of their money, their portfolio, right? There's also discussion about CBDC or tokenized Thai baht stablecoins, where with that you use it for different purpose, right? You solve payment problem, where so I think it came back to the principle, right? What problem are you trying to solve? Are you trying to create a new investment vehicle, or are you trying to solve, payments problem or helping people's life to be better? So with that, then you choose the right underlying asset, right? And underlying securities, underlying asset to be correct for the tokenized asset that you want to do, right? So that's my thought.
I met like some DeFi founders out there, and they gave me a question, and I would love to have here, Jeff. Like they asked about like is there any chance for them so they can work with like BFSI firms integrate their DeFi solution with them. Is there any?
I think one of the core things that Ronnie was speaking about consistently was licensed activities, regulated activities, and then unregulated activities, right? So, fortunately or unfortunately, as a startup, if you're going to be working with a bank, you're a technology provider, you're a solution provider. So regulators don't necessarily interested to speak with you as much as the regulated actor. So first and foremost, you have to understand the positioning as a builder, right? And so if that's what the value proposition is, then you need to figure out the problem statement for the bank. The banks right now, and this is in general, banks make money off of what's known as API banking. All the different calls, the fees that move money transactions from one system to another system, that's where they get the fees off of. And that's how they make their money, right? The other way they make money is fractionalized reserve lending. What that means is they borrow money from central banks or wholesale banks, then they keep your money in a bank account, they give a portion of your money to somebody else, and then they charge interest on the money that they lend out. But they don't actually have to keep all of the money that backs up the loan that they give to like someone who wants to buy a home or pay for a student loan. And so if you think of it like that, then that's another use case. You think like, okay, so tokenized deposits, and then what as a technology provider can I help a bank to get to that next Web3 version of a core business that they're already running? So that's just my recommendation, right? Just don't reinvent the wheel. Just look at how things are done today, and then work with the bank to understand the problem from their perspective, and then offer them a Web3 solution. And if you need support, like the foundation's here to help you, right? So, and then partners here on stage as well. So, yeah.
So let's get back to BFSI first. Because we can see like actually even as Bameda, we receive like a lot of like requests from banks and some financial services providers here in Vietnam. They want us to consult about like tokenization, real estate. So yeah, like now Vietnam we have like a lot of real estate projects, and it go back to surging trend again, and I believe it will become like much more popular than before, like in the next years. So the question would be like, how can like tokenized real assets like can transform like investment opportunities in Vietnam? Yeah, yeah. So I think can you help me with that?
Sure. I was going to pass to Rani because that's her topic, but I can share a little bit, right? So in Thailand, there's a project called RealX, right? There's a token called RealX, where it's tokenized by a company called TokenX, which is in the same group as us. So it basically tokenized three luxury condominiums in Bangkok, where Rani's mentioned that you probably won't be able to earn everything in or even a one unit, right? But you can actually buy the token and you hold fractional of the condominium project, right? So what the project is doing is they rent out some of those units that they couldn't sell the unit, and they put this into a project, tokenize into a token, have clear, proper guaranteed return for a certain period of years, and then people can, buy this token. They can buy from ICO when they first launch, and later on they can also buy in the secondary market, like in the crypto exchange. So it actually opened up opportunity for people to invest in different asset class instead of earning low yield, safe yield on money market funds or bonds. They can earn like 5 to 6 or 7% on different asset class, help them to diversify their portfolio. Ready?
I think it really depends on what exactly is the problem that is being faced, right? So if it is one where developers are finding it difficult to in fact get financing, right, to do property development, because maybe the bank's quota is already up, let's say, right? So in that instance, yes, you can actually use tokenization as a means to raise funds in order to do the development. So that also actually provides investors an opportunity to earn returns from real estate beyond REITs. So, typically when you do tokenization real estate, right, you need to be able to provide returns to the holder of token beyond REITs. Because otherwise investors will say, why do I want to buy this? I might as well buy the REITs. REITs are a lot more liquid, right? So there must be some added benefit. So some of the use cases that I've seen, like one that I'm working on is the fact that, the developer has a piece of land and they want to actually undertake a certain development, but they cannot get the financing. And actually, even large developers have liquidity issues, right? In fact, most of the time, large developers are the ones who will have it because they have maxed up their loans with the banks, right? And they've got many developments going on at the same time. So they want to then issue a token, but they're going on a lease to own. So which means within a 5-year period, right? They would actually be selling whatever asset that is comprised under that program. So if they are developing apartments, right, then those apartments will be fully sold by the 5 years. So the IRR, right, for an investor should be anything above 8%. At the same time, you give an opportunity to them to own the property. So it can actually have the effect of enabling developers to have access to financing. It can also have the effect of enabling people to own homes because most of the time you find young people, right, after 2-3 years they will have the ability, but in the beginning they don't, right? So that's where you can structure that. It can also enable a situation where, let's say, there's a lot of stock, it cannot be cleared. Sometimes there's a glut in the market, right? So you can also then securitize that, right? To do a REIT structure in the stock exchange is you must have capitalization and a lot of revenue requirements, right? But here you can also securitize those stocks, right? Provide some returns and slowly clear them out. So in that way, developer is actually achieving liquidity to be able to carry on their business. So yeah, I mean there are many ways in which it can be positive towards the property market in any country.
Okay, so today, so there are some banks coming here, and they also ask us about can you please give them some advice on who should they partner with, like the strategy on the technology, the resources, including like tech talents, or some sort of things, because I see there's some unclear plan is hindering them from executing and entering this digital asset space. Yeah. So Jeff, can you engage with this?
I hope no one from Big Four or Accenture or anybody, BCGX is here. Don't go to a big company to tell you how to do small company innovation. So I'm not saying you won't get good answers. You should pay a lot of money. You could have tried many other things. So that's the first recommendation. The second recommendation, I think I spoke about this earlier, and I was in Da Nang yesterday. There was a government conference up there speaking about sandbox. and how you can have innovation inside a sandbox. I don't entirely agree with sandbox innovation. I think what should be done instead is have very specific pilots that solve problems for your bank, in which you can use innovations in process, technology, and people and talent, um, and propose that back to the government for evaluation. It's very similar to what and how VARA in the UAE works. So it's an activity-based regulation versus specifically structured kind of rulebook type approach. So I would recommend that as a bank if you're looking for that open innovation approach, to not go through a consultant to give you options that you pick off a menu, and really challenge yourself to identify your own problems internally, and then experiment and then propose that as something that can be regulated. And then the third thing I would recommend is join a Web3 industry association, to learn, to contribute, and to participate. Because I think one thing in Vietnam specifically I've experienced so far is that they're very open to consultation. There's very little time before the law is active on January 1st, the crypto law. And there's a lot of pieces that you need to be in place, irrespective if it's like a IFC or if it's going to be your traditional market. You have to have these infrastructure pieces in place, from regulatory compliance, aligning banks and custodians, et cetera. And so I think it's really important to participate in an industry association to work these things out as an industry to update the government. So those are my recommendations.
Yeah. So what I would recommend is, perhaps, more baby steps from the perspective of, working together, right, with existing parties in the ecosystem, right? So often, right, for a bank to start an initiative can be a mammoth exercise. So the easier thing to do, right, is to perhaps, work with another fintech. And I think that's actually a very healthy approach to take, right, where you do support the ecosystem in which you are operating. Because a lot of the fintech players, right, have very innovative ideas, and they are more nimble and they can move much faster. Because, many of these new things, because I come from a very traditional organization in the past, right? And when I was a chief commercial officer, I tried to, actually propose a lot of innovation. It always gets blocked, right? You got to go through the 10 committees, and someone up there will suddenly play God and say, no, it's not happening. Yeah. And so, no, it's not easy actually, to bring about innovation in very traditional companies, unless, of course, the board is extremely focused and sets aside a separate team, right? Because there are a lot of legacy issues that you will need to deal with. So the easier thing for you to do to leapfrog, which actually I see, right, happening with a lot of the large banks globally, is to actually work with one or two of the fintech players, right, that meets your needs. So you need to determine what's your need, right, and then you can actually support the fintech players in many ways, right? So you could either take an equity stake, or you can collaborate with them on a project, or as Jeff says, do a pilot on something with them. So I think that supportive ecosystem is very important. And that is going to be the key to success, because a bank doesn't have all the expertise. A bank cannot do everything, right? And banks are also extremely risk averse. So it sometimes it's best to be nurtured outside as opposed to be nurtured inside.
I agree with both of you. I worked with banks before. When I heard all those big consulting firm coming for this project, my first question is, for real? Are they going to come and execute anything? At the end of the day, as a bank, you ended up doing the work yourself, right? Go for small, nimble company like One Meta. Give them opportunity, right? Give us opportunity. These guys are very innovative. These guys can move faster. In fact, they actually work harder than those big companies, right? Because need to be success, right? I think that's very important. Another thing I want to emphasize is, not just fintechs, right? I also think banks also move faster than regulators, right? So work with them, right? Try to understand them, guiding them to the right direction, right? Like I'll give a clear example, right? In every country, when they start regulating digital asset or crypto, again, they start with exchange, broker, fund manager, they're building the business, but they don't have a very clear or like the right framework for keeping the asset, right? They probably say, okay, exchange can keep the asset themselves at the beginning. They don't have to use third-party custodian, but be more forward thinking, right? Be more proactive. You can look outside, it's very easy. You can look into other countries, see what's the right structure, and then work with the regulator, right? It doesn't mean that when they tell you to do one thing, that's the right thing, right? Work with them, trying to educate them, and gearing into the right direction, right? So emphasizing on collaboration, I think that would drive into success.
I'd just like to echo, I mean, we have actually been working with Bameta, right? They have helped us with the development of our own platform, and I have nothing but praises for them, right? So, they're very dedicated, right? And excellent service. Yeah, so I completely, agree with Atrit that, need to give the smaller players also a chance, and that's the way in which you grow, your own domestic, ecosystem.
Thank you, guys.